Well, here we are. It is Thursday, March 7th, 2024. And in this video, we're going to talk about a bit about Asia Week a bit more. Yesterday, we talked about the Metropolitan Museum deaccession load that went off to Bonhams, will be sold on the 18th of March. And now we're going to talk about the Christie's sales. We'll also do the Sotheby's sale, and there's some other auctions coming up as well. And we're going to touch a little bit more in some more detail on the Bonham sale, because we talked a lot about the history of it, but there were a few lots I wanted to go over. We'll fit those in as well. If you come over to Bidamount, and those of you that use the site all the time know where to look. You scroll down to the red boxes. The catalogs are posted here. You just click the catalog button, and it brings you over to here. In the top row, you'll find 4 catalogs. One is for Bonhams, one is for Christie's, one is for Sotheby's, and the other one is for Sotheby's. And I expect the other catalogs will be up shortly. As soon as they publish them and post the PDF files, we'll convert them into catalogs. All right, so but the big ones are up there right now. This is Wrathful Deities. It's taking place at Sotheby's. Good looking auction, some amazing bronzes, and their Chinese art sale. And this is the Bonhams catalog, which we talked about yesterday in that interview that we did. That so a nice long interview, nice chat with Dessa Goddard. She's the vice president and head of sort of global operations for Bonhams, and we talked about the sale because she was awfully excited about it. And now we're going to talk about the Christie's sale. And in the Christie's sale, we're going to focus for a little bit as we go along on the collection of Dorothy Tapper Goldman. And some of you may know who she is. You may know her husband. The name may ring a bell somewhere. And it's because a few years ago, back in 2021, there was an auction of a copy of the U.S. Constitution that ended up selling for $43.3 million. And it came from the Goldman family. It came from their collection. Her husband sort of famously bought the Constitution document back in 1988 for $163,000, and everybody thought it was ridiculous. What a crazy amount of money to pay for something, for just a printed piece of paper. Well, they had a huge collection of American founding, they were collectors of the founding documents of the country. They had a massive collection of letters and things and so forth from Thomas Jefferson and Madison and Ben Franklin and you name it. And they were big fans of the founding fathers and how the country got started, how the Bill of Rights was formed, and how the Declaration of Independence was written and all that. And they actually lectured on it. But in addition to that interest, she was also a big fan, an antique collector in general, but a huge fan of Chinese art, which went back way many years ago when she was younger. And there's a very interesting write-up in the catalog about her biography. She passed away last summer in 2023 in July, but she was very well known. She was on the boards of lots of museums. She was a well-known benefactor of many, many, many institutions. I can't go through them all. It's almost unbelievable that she and her husband did everything they did, and she remained active buying right up pretty much right to the end of her life. True collector. So we're going to take a look at some of her lots that are in the sale. There is a live auction component to her collection, over 100 lots just from her in the sale, and then there is an online sale only, which has a lot of it. And if you're a monochrome collector, there's some very nice pieces in here that you'll want to investigate. She collected monochromes. You won't find any Famille Rose or Femme Vert really or anything like that, but you'll find lots of great monochromes from all periods. And it's very and some early pottery too, I should point out. All right, but we're going to start out with this. We're going to start with the cover lot. This wasn't from her. This was another consignor. It doesn't say. It just says it was sold in 1986 at Sotheby's, and that it came originally from the T.Y. Chow collection. Those of you who've been collecting for any length of time know who T.Y. Chow was. It was one of the great Chinese collections that was sold a number of years ago and got dispersed off to many, many happy collectors. And this plate was one of them. And they're not saying who it came from, but it's a spectacular charger, dragon charger from the Yong Chen period. It's very big, almost 18 inches in diameter, beautifully done. Very fierce dragon, a real Qing dragon, very fiercely done with a Shao character in the center and the 5-clawed beast running around, and then more dragons on the rim in a very, very dark blue wave border, reminiscent of borders from the early Ming and late Yong Dynasty. And this is quite a plate. It's estimated at $300,000 to $500,000, and we'll see if it gets there. We'll see if it gets there. It's a beautiful example, though. It looks to be in great condition. And then there's this. This is from the Goldman collection. Is a very finely carved Celadon qilong with the qilongs and so forth, Kangxi period brush pot. A very good example. They provided lovely pictures of the bottom of it and all the way around. And these brush pots tend to do awfully well. Brush pots have been very hot lately, it seems. And similar brush pots like this, don't be surprised if it goes through the estimate. Similar brush pots to this one have sold a number of times between Sotheby's and Christie's through the years. If you go and look, you'll find them. And they brought anywhere from $27,000 to $60,000 or $70,000. So the $15,000 to $25,000 estimate on here is pretty modest, but it's a beautiful example. And she bought it in 2006 at Christie's, so they're selling it again. All right, now over to this copper red bottle vase. This is not a huge ticket item, but I thought it was particularly beautiful. And it was 18th century, but when you blow this vase up and you pull it in, what you see is how thick the glaze is, because you can see all the bubbles. The bubble suffusion in a couple of her pieces, and the way they lit them really pulled them out. And it looks almost like an irregular surface, and those are all bubbles under the glaze. I think in person, this would be quite an amazing vase to handle. I can see why she loved it so much. And here's a picture of the bottom of it. It's not marked. Of course, many of these aren't. But clearly an 18th century example. It is 12 inches tall, so it's sort of a large one. And it's estimated pretty modestly, $6,000 to $8,000. So that's not a bad deal at all. And then over to this. I love this. I thought this was great. It's a Sung Dynasty pottery figure of a baby, seated. Well, they just call it a seated boy. I think it's a seated baby. And we've seen these before. And I think I remember this one sold. She bought this at Sotheby's in 2017, apparently. But it was, I see, this looks familiar to me. I think maybe because I liked it. I love the form. I love the way it's done. The face, it's not really big. There's a photograph of her in the catalog actually sitting with it. So on a table behind her, you can get a sense of scale. It's about a foot tall. Very nice piece of pottery, and looks to be in great condition for its age. Remember, this is Sung. It's a Sung piece. And I always liked the way the Sung Dynasty, the way they did heads in statues and so forth. A very attractive execution. It's estimated at $60,000 to $80,000, which doesn't sound unreasonable. So we'll see what happens. And the sale, by the way, is in 13 days. It's taking place on, what is the date of the auction? I should have mentioned that right off the bat. Click back to the cover. What are they saying here? Let's see here. The auction date is Thursday, March 21st, and Friday, the 22nd. There we go. Okay. Now we'll get back over to the little boy here. $60,000 to $80,000. I think it's a great thing. And it's a monochrome. I think that's probably why she collected it, but it was awfully nice. Also in her collection are a whole bunch. She seemed to have cornered the market on Shen de 6-character mark, underglazed blue, yellow Imperial Dishes. And what it's neat about this is that a lot of copies are being made of these, and we see them all the time on Live Auctioneers and Valuable. They pop up and people are trying to sell them. And because she has like 5 of them in the sale. Come over and take the time to look at them. If you're trying to find these old pieces, you're not going to find them out there. I'm just going to say it. But one of the ways you can spot the old ones is you look at the way they did the foot on them. The foot rims on these are very identifiable. They tend to be very, very thin. And a lot of the copies, they're very thick. And they shouldn't be thick. This one is very thin and delicately done. And it's a beautiful example. She's got a bunch of them. And they're estimated at basically in the $20,000 to $30,000 range. They generally sell for more than that on many occasions. So if they sell for $40,000 or $50,000, don't be shocked. But she has another one here. This is another one that's in the sale. Really, really pretty, all beautiful colors. She loved yellow, apparently. And here's another one, again, with that very, very thin foot. But come over and study the backs of these. When they have these auctions, it's very important, if you really want to learn about them, take advantage of this new, the way they allow for enlarging now on your screens, especially if you're using a desktop or a flat screen, something bigger than a phone. And you can see a lot of the detail that you need to recognize and spot when you're out looking at things. And sometimes it may be just be the difference between is this a Kangxi copy or an 18th century copy, or is it an original? Most of the ones you're going to encounter out there, 999 out of 1,000 will be 18th or 19th century. But just so you know the difference, and this is what the back of this one looks like. This one also estimated at 25 to 35,000. There's another one. Like I said, she cornered the lot on these, $20,000 to $30,000 estimate. I think they'll probably, some of them will go well over that, but that's the way it is. And then there's this one. I think again with that very, very thin foot, and they're all extremely similar. When you go through these, if you take the time, and I urge you to do it, as you go through them, you're going to be shocked by how similar each plate is as far as finish and the way it was trimmed. And when you consider the time period, it's quite amazing that these were done. And they did them with such regularity and such precision. Again, a $20,000 to $30,000 plate. And she loved yellow, like I said. And then in the sale is this. It's an incised dragon Mei Ping vase. And it has a very modest estimate on it, but I included it because it's beautiful. Here's a picture of the bottom. It's got a mark on it that they've deciphered and so forth. And they're dating it to the 19th century. But it's spectacularly well potted. It's beautifully potted and beautifully glazed. This rich egg yolk glaze with incised dragons underneath the surface. Almost, I guess it technically would be called underway decoration. But it's beautifully done with a fairly reasonable estimate. It's $5,000 to $7,000 for something that good, and it's 13 inches tall. So it has a good presence, and it's the color that's so good in this. The color is wonderful. All right, and then over here, like I said, she loved the yellow, is this, the yellow ovoid glass jar, Peking glass or Beijing glass as they call them now. Now this one is an interesting example because it came from the collection of Barney and Emma Dagan. And you may remember that there was a book published that was called A Chorus of Colors. I have a copy of it. And this piece is actually illustrated in that book. And they had an auction in 2014 of that collection. And Mrs. Goldman bought this out of it. And it's a nice pot, and it's a big one. It's 9 inches tall and about 9 inches wide. So it's a good size object, estimated at $6,000 to $8,000. And there's that Kangxi brush pot again. And then this, and some of you may recognize this. This sold a few years ago, back in around 2017. It wasn't sold that long ago. Let's see if they included it. It came from the Lin Yu Shen Ren collection, that famous collection. Christie sold it in 2018. And when they sold it the last time around, it brought $137,000. This time they're estimating it, again, they're estimating it very modestly, $60,000 to $80,000. But it should go to that or eclipse it easily. Like I said, last time around it brought $137,000. But it's a highly unusual piece of Zhuzhou work with these butterflies. Usually they're not; these pieces aren't quite so pictorial. Sometimes they are, but not with that kind of precision. And the potting of this pot is exceptional. It measures 7 inches tall. It's very, very pretty. And then this was also in her collection. I love this. If you like bronzes, you want to check this out. It's a Zoomorphic Bronze made probably during the transitional to the Kangxi period. It's a beautifully done example. It's a few inches long, but it's just very unusual. It still has a lot of its gilding on it, as you can see. The condition looks to be excellent. It still has its gilt splash stopper on top of it, and so forth. Very, very nice looking bronze. Estimated at $6,000 to $8,000. And she bought it at Christie's in 2018, and it came from the collection of Dennis Sutton that was sold in 1991. So this is a really nice little bronze, and I don't think the estimate's bad on it. It measures 3 7/8, almost 4 inches long. Great little bronze. And then this was in the other parts of the sale. This didn't belong to Miss Goldman, but it was a really, really fine Kangxi period. They're dating it 17th to 18th century, but usually I think of these as being Kangxi. A very finely carved soapstone figure of a Lohan seated, but very nice colors. Beautifully finished. Notice that the textile details The way that on the edges of his robes, they're all carved out with wave patterns all the way down and around. Meticulously done, very meticulous, and the face is fully done, including every hair of the eyebrow, the mustache, all that. It's just a great carving, and miraculously his hand isn't broken, or neither of his hands appear to be broken. It's estimated 7,000 to 9,000. We've seen examples like this bring that before. It's 4.5 inches tall. Just a great piece of carving. And then there's this. This is in the sale as well. It's a mother of pearl inlaid lacquer table, Ming Dynasty. Take the time to look at it. The pictures don't really do it justice until you get to the top of it. And then you see the incredible amount of detail in the mother of pearl. The inlay work on this thing is absolutely mind-boggling on black lacquer or dark brown. It's actually a dark brown lacquer, I guess, technically, but it looks black. And superbly inlaid. Notice the bricks and the structure going over, and the ladders, and the bamboo ladders, and the way the pine trees are done. And the pine trees in the foreground are great because they give you a sense of scale. And so forth, these big branches, and that's where the viewer is sitting, and boats and so forth. It's a dandy little table, and it's estimated at $20,000 to $30,000. It's not, it's not nothing, but it's an awfully pretty table, very rare type. And it was sold originally by Michael Wiesbrod in New York, who of course was one of the great dealers in the world, and ran a great gallery for many years. All right, and then over to this. This blew my mind. There's no much real history about this. It came from the collection of Frank Fennell and Mary Hinman, not Heinemann, no connection, who passed away in 1980. The collection was acquired, and it was in a collection up until 1980, and then thence by descent within the family, it was acquired before 1939. And this is one of the most beautiful pieces of carved zeton I've seen in a couple of years. It's estimated at 180 to 120,000 Qianlong period, and it's good size. It's not a little table. Well, it's fairly small. It's 36 by 32 inches, so it's about 3 feet tall, and is 82 centimeters wide. So it's fairly wide. All right, it's fairly wide. It's almost 3 feet in diameter, but it's not something you could sit on or anything. But when you blow up the pictures, the quality of the carving in the zeton wood is absolutely astonishing, all the way down, everywhere, all through it. And one of the things they did, and I want everybody to take the time to do it, is you go to the last picture. They have a very good video taken of it, and the piece almost looks like, the color is so good. The zeton color in this is so good. It almost looks like carved tortoise shell. It's if you've looked at that and sort of in a quick way, and somebody said, "Oh, it's made out of tortoise shell," you go, "Yeah, that's amazing, tortoise shell." No, it's zeton wood, which is actually better than tortoise shell from a rarity standpoint, and it's stupendously well carved. If you've been looking for the greatest piece of zeton that's been around in a long time, this is it. And I expect it to take off. If it continues the furniture trend, this should do awfully well. It should do awfully well because it's Qianlong period. It's intact. The carving is amazing. I absolutely love it. So I hope it does very well. And then there's this. This is also in the sale. It's a large gilt bronze figure of a seated Lohan Southern Sung. And again, we have those very nice looking Sung heads, beautifully done, and it's cast to sit on a plinth. And you can see how they've built a nice stand for it. The casting is outstanding on this. When you look at the folds of all the fabric, and you consider when this was done, the Song Dynasty, and beautifully done all the way up in wonderful condition, absolutely beautiful expression on his face, on the Buddha's face, absolutely beautiful, serene, just elegant, just absolutely perfect. It's got a strong estimate on it, 500 to 700,000, but it's one of the nicest bronzes, I think, for the season that are going to be out there. It's an awfully nice piece of bronze work, and it's good size. It's 33 inches tall. It's almost 3 feet tall. It's a good-looking thing. And then this is in the sale. This I liked a lot. This was a piece of junware. How big is this thing? Hold on a second. It's Yong Chen marked in period, 10 inches long, and absolutely a rare bird. And obviously, the people in the kilns were trying to, do a bit of an homage or looking back to earlier wares when they were doing Junyao and all that business in the early Ming Dynasty and at the end in the Yuan Dynasty, and they did this. But it's seal marked on the bottom, Yong Chen. And here's a side view of it. A very, very rare type of porcelain. Extremely rare. There's the mark on the bottom. It's in there. And beautiful. And the estimate on it is it's significant. $60,000 to $80,000. But it's an extraordinary bulb tray. Really, really is. It was in a collection in Japan, and that's no surprise because it was actually in it says the anonymous family collection, and it was involved with the a bonsai auction, which makes complete sense because that's what the Japanese loved them for that purpose, for doing bonsai. Imagine you buy that and put a bonsai plant in it. And then this is in the collection of I forget. It says where it came from. Oh, it came from the Samuel Davis collection from 1940. And then it was passed down, and it's been in a collection on Jupiter Island ever since. It's a piece of dewa, and it's fully reticulated. And we've all seen those very common sort of reticulated white porcelain table lamps that they made in the 1950s and 60s. This is the original. And this is amazing. It has gilt work over it, over this band at the top, and a gilt upper section, and then fully reticulated bamboo trees all the way down with red-headed or herons in it. I'm assuming they're red-headed herons, and holes in the bottom. This is quite a piece of dewa. And if you haven't seen a piece like that, it's because they didn't do them very often, because the complexity of trying to carve this would be amazing, to try and do this perfectly in clay and then fire it and not have it fall apart somewhere. And dewa, of course, the clay from dewa holds its shape very, very well, so it's sort of optimal for this kind of work. And this one really came out well. It measures 14 and a half inches tall, so it's a big piece of porcelain, estimated at $8,000 to $12,000. So if you're a dewa collector, you want to check that out. And then there's this Yong Chen pomegranate. I love this. I love this because of the color. The form you see fairly often. You see these pomegranate form vases. They're anywhere from 4 inches up to maybe 7 or 8 inches. This happens to be a 7 and 1/8 inch tall, 7 inches call it. But the color, the color of the sapphire blue, is absolutely amazing on this. The color is so perfect, like a royal blue. It's marking period, of course. There's the bottom of it, and it was sold at Sotheby's in 1994. There's the foot rim. That's what it should look like. Very, very rare thing, and they've given it a big estimate, $100,000 to $150,000. And I think it's because the quality of the potting is so good, and the shaping, the finish, and the color. The color is nearly gem-like. It's absolutely beautiful, wonderful thing. And then this was a bit of a surprise. This is a mususashi, which are typically in the Japanese market, obviously, for holding water for tea ceremony. And this is a Celadon that was made during the Shenzhen period, the last gasp of the Ming Empire. This was produced, and it's dated, as I recall from the description. The 9th year of the Shenzhen period. Corresponding to 1638, estimated at $8,000 to $12,000. If you are a late Ming, Shenzhen, early Qing collector, this I was now referred to as the Butler era for the Butler collection. This is 1638. At we're getting right up to the end of the empire was collapsing, and they produced this. And this is such a great pot. So if you collect these. And you collect things from this era, you're not going to find another one of these, I don't think. I can't think of another one that I've seen. I think it's absolutely great. And the estimate is very low, $8,000 to $12,000. It's quite exceptional. There's no provenance on it, no history, no background. Obviously came out of a Japanese collection at some point, but what a piece of porcelain. And the color is exceptional. It's not just that it's from a rare period. I should mention that. The color of this is absolutely fabulous. This is like the ideal Longquan green. Even though the Longquan kilns were closed by the time this was made, this wouldn't have been made in those because those kilns were shut down in the 1550s. So this was made probably in Jing Chen and done in the way they did them in Long Quan. I'm just assuming. Maybe they made it somewhere else, but I can't think where. And it's dated, which makes it incredibly rare. And then this is a white dish Guangxu period. And I'm showing this because it's a wonderful monochrome, and you don't see many Guangxu period monochromes in white. It's very, very rare. And there it is with a box. It's quite a thing. Nice example, and I think it's beautifully potted. You'll notice that it's very similarly potted to some of those Ming yellow dishes we were just looking at. The way the foot is done, very, very similar. Estimated just $4,000 to $6,000. It should bring that all day long. It's 8.5 inches in diameter. Because the color it's a rare color, I expect it to go over it. And then this I just loved it, and it's a Yong Chen with sort of a peach bloom glaze, and then this sort of greenish area, and to get this greenish effect, it's actually from the copper they use to produce the red. If it's very lightly done and the temperature's done exactly the way they should be in the kiln, instead of turning pink, they will turn green, and I suspect that's what happened here. I don't think they applied a Celadon glaze to it because the inside of it is white. I think this was some copper oxide they applied that turned green during the firing process, and it happened to come out with a wonderful result. So you have this pinkish framing, or like almost peach bloom framing at the bottom, and then at the top, and then the interior, of course, is white. And there's the mark on the bottom. Looks absolutely fine. And then you can really see this texture. It looks like it's also loaded with bubblies. And it's estimated $20,000 to $30,000, but it's very nicely potted, and they're calling it a cup. It's small. It's 2 7/8 inches in diameter, but it's a very sweet little piece and very unusual, very, very unusual. And then the giware. This is a foliate dish, Southern Sung. It's got a big estimate on it, 1.8 to 2.5 million. These are incredibly rare, absolutely incredibly rare. Here's the back of it. They provided an excellent photograph of the back because there are so many copies of these out in the world. You just run into them at auctions all the time. And if you're interested in these things, make a copy of this, download this image onto your computer so you don't ever buy another fake again, because this is what it should look like. The fakes always have very dark foot rims, and sometimes they're brown, but this is what they should look like. This very creamy glazed foot on them, and there's the interior. And incidentally, to this catalog, I should point out too, the write-up about Mrs. Goldman was written by Bob Mowry, who was the former head of Asian art at the Harvard Museum. He's now a consultant working with Christie's, and he's a terrific writer and he's a terrific speaker. If you've ever seen his YouTube, some of his YouTube lectures, you know what I'm talking about. And he's a font of information, in particular with things from the Sung and Yuan and early Ming Dynasty. He really knows his stuff. And he retired from Harvard about 10 years ago now. And he's been doing academic work and working with Christie's ever since. But this is a very, very rare thing. It's got a long history. It came from the C.F. Yao collection. Then it belonged to Stephen Jungkook. We all know Stephen Jungkook's famous collection, that massive collection out of the Midwest that they keep selling from. The Jungkook collection almost reminds me of the Sackler collection. It just never seems to end. And then it went into other collections, and it ended up in the Lin Yu Shenren collection in Japan, and then it was sold. So here it is, wonderful, wonderful piece, 1.8 to 2.5 million. Hopefully it'll get there. These Sung pieces of that age typically do. All right, and then now there's also a live sale. Now this is not the component with the rest of the Goldman things in it. This is sort of the general live sale that they're doing, and they have everything in here. They have in the sale. This is sort of fun. They've done it sort of like an old-fashioned auction. So they have a lot of copper and metalwork. They've got some Chinese porcelain. They've got Japanese stuff in here. It's sort of a smorgasbord of Asian art, which I like a great deal. When you go through it, you'll see some awfully nice tankas, some very good bronzes, some Indian work, Indian works of art and so forth. And then you get down to the end here and you come up with some more monochromes, more ceramics and so forth, some blue and white, very, very unusual Kosometsuki peach form plate here. some good examples in this sale. It's a very nice little sale, and a lot of estimates that are buyable. For what I call for the rest of the real world. Things that are 2 to 3,000, 1 to 3,000, 1 to 2,000. There'll probably be some good bargains in here. But I'm going to go through a few of the lots that caught my eye as being particularly interesting. One of them is this. It's an enameled bottle vase. They're dating it sort of 18th to 19th century or late 18th century. Is this very unusual? Really unusual vase with a dragon coming down and fish as though they're trying to enter this house for some reason. I don't know the allegory behind it. There's the dragon. This is a really wonderful vase. If you collect 18th century bottle vases in unusual pieces, this is a great one. The gold dragon coming down ferociously into the waves, because they often depict in Chinese art, they depict the dragon ascending and descending. And in this case, he's descending, and I just absolutely love that. I think that's a great thing, and it's not a bank. It's not going to break anybody's. It's not cheap. It's $3,000 to $5,000, but I think it's worth going after because I think it's highly unusual. If you're looking around for something, this is worth going after. They say it sold at Kensington at Christie's in 2015. I don't remember seeing it, but I think it's a great thing. Might have slipped through. Good looking thing. And then this is a blockbuster in my opinion. I absolutely love this. Now it's interesting, they're dating this as 19th century, and it might well be, but when you pull this Chanshu Ping, and look at the quality of the decoration, the color of these cloud devices floating around on it, and the potting on this, it's just outstanding. It has a gilt rim on it, but the red enamels, the honeycomb pattern, are absolutely beautiful. And they're dating it as being 19th century. And I looked at the bottom of it. It could be, maybe they're being safe, I don't know. But you look at the bottom of this thing, you look at the quality of the work. If it's 19th century, I think it's probably very early 19th century. Maybe Chai-Ching period or something like that. But it also could be 18th century because the work is just stupendous. And I think the estimate is pretty reasonable, $5,000 to $7,000. And it's a big pot. It's 15 inches tall. If you've been looking for something really great and rare, expect it to bring a lot more. If this brought 30,000, I wouldn't be in the least bit surprised. Not in the least bit. It's highly unusual. It's beautiful. And sometimes always buy quality. Always buy something. If it's beautiful, that's what you want to buy. And that's a beautiful, beautiful vase. Absolutely gorgeous. All right, and they also have some very nice Japanese and Korean works in here. This is, let's see here, 17th to 18th century. Let's see, what are they? The European hounds, Japanese. It was sold. Oh, it's interesting. It was written about by Michael Goodweiss, the London dealer. He's a very good dealer. A really interesting screen, $10,000 to $20,000. Nice big wide estimate. And then you have this. This is the Garuda. It's about a foot tall and probably around 20 inches wide, I'm guessing by the pictures, but I love the way this thing looks, the way it's coming at the viewer, and it's on this nice little stand. This was just a stupendous bronze, and here are the forehands and the backhands and so forth, and he's screaming out, and there's gilding still available on it. The estimate, I think, is very reasonable, $8,000 to $12,000. It's a wonderful Nepalese bronze, beautiful example. And then there's this in the sale, and I'm including this because it's Indian, but the Indian school, as they used to call it, the Indian school produced some incredibly fine paintings. They're certainly on a par, if not maybe even a little finer than the very fine 18th century export paintings that we see around. They're dating this to the 19th century. It's obviously of the Taj Mahal, but I wanted everybody to see this to just get an understanding of the fineness of the detail of this painting. It's almost done like it was done with the rulers and like an architect did it. The bricks and the towers, the spires, the minarets, all of it, and with that heavy Islamic influence, of course, because they were under the influence of Islamic leadership at the time. But an absolutely beautiful piece, and this is where, of course, the wife Shah Jahan was interred. In India, and it's $6,000 to $8,000 painting. It measures the image is 13 by 21 inches, so it's a pretty good sized picture. I thought that was a great thing. I really liked that. And then hopping along over to this is the online sale for the rest of the Goldman collection. There's some great stuff in here, and the estimates I think are pretty reasonable. 1 to 2,000, 2 to 3,000, lots of interesting lots. And when you get down into the middle of it, there's a huge swath of Blanc de Chine Delois pieces. I think there's about 30 or 40 lots of it. And I'm going to go through a couple of them. They're awfully nice. And there's some other pieces I'll get to too. The first thing I want to mention though quickly is this amber glazed ovoid Tang de Liao Dynasty jar that she owned. I thought it was just beautiful. Beautiful color, beautiful shape. And when you blow it up and bring it in, it's got a really interesting pattern in the glaze. That's when they would roll. They had rollers that would sort of roll stamp a decoration into it to give it some three-dimensionality, I guess. And but the color of this is beautiful, and I love the way the glaze bleeds down, leaving behind some of the white paste still showing. I love it gives it a nice rustic edge, and it still has a lid. I'm assuming the lid is original. $4,000 to $6,000 estimate. Absolutely reasonable. And these are some of the Blanc de Chine pieces. These are fantastic. Most of them are 17th to 18th century. There's some 19th century examples, of course, but there's this beautiful goo-form vase with relief work of a plum blossom tree going up it. Very, very nice piece of Blanc de Chine. Estimated $4,000 to $6,000, and this was good size. It was 15 inches tall. It wasn't an 8 or 10 inch one. This is a big vase, it's like a trumpet vase. Very nice example. And then this is 3 pieces in the lot. I love the little mast-handled vase on the right side. And then you have a big version of this pattern, and then you have like a mini-me to go with it. And the big one is pretty good size. We're going to check that in the middle. The backs are undecorated, and there's the foot rims to them. These are all nice early ones, 17th to 18th century. Again, the biggest one is 13 inches, so these are probably 6 or 8 inches tall. But what a great little lot. $4,000 to $6,000, and then you have this, the 2 ewers, a very early type of ewer. You see it sometimes on Kangxi porcelains, and then this very attractive round box. And as I recall, a year or two ago, there was a box very similar to this that actually popped up on eBay, and as I recall, it brought $3,000 or $4,000. So it'll tell you how these might do. All right, but if you're a Blanc de Chine collector, you absolutely have to go and look at these lots. And also this dandy little brush pot lot. I just threw it in because it had this great big, the 2 small pots aren't that great, but I love the big pot because it's got a hole in the middle. And it's a scroll pot, so it's opened up on this side so you can put them in. But it's a very beautiful piece of burl wood. Absolutely wonderful. And it's fairly good size. It's I think they said the biggest brush pot is 9 inches. So if this is 9 inches, this thing's probably about 16 or 17 inches in height, I would guess. It's a nice lot, though. $3,000 to $5,000, very reasonable. And you remember the bunk sale when they had all those great miniatures and how well they did? Go back and check. All right, here's a lot with 18 of them in one lot, and they're all beautifully done. And go back and check your results from the Bronx sale, from that collection that had belonged to the man that ran the auction house in New York. And you pull these in and go through these. These are nice looking pieces. These are not modern or anything like that. These are nice late 19th, some of them may be 18th century examples. Beautifully glazed, beautiful colors. Look at this little jar here with melon form jar, this little late 19th century type. Still has its lid. You have these the red swirly, underglazed red, copper red swirling jar, these black glazed pieces, a piece of Delois or white porcelain, and so forth, and this gold one over here. It's a great lot. And you have to sort of figure, you've got 18 of them, and they're probably worth $300 or $400 a piece. So the estimate of $400 to $600 doesn't mean much. But expect them to bring $300 each. So they're going to bring $3,000 or $4,000 anyway, I would think. But if you're a dealer and you want to take a shot at it, I would urge you to do it because there's very good breakup value, as they say, in this lot. Selling each piece off on eBay or through a shop or something, I think it's got sort of a nice built-in profit for the dealers out there. All right, and then lastly, on the online sale is this, and I put this up because this is interesting. This is a Ming Dynasty brown charger. It almost looks like Swato. If it was blue and white, you'd think it was Swato. And then you have these 2, I think these are probably Yuan. I don't know if they dated them. Yuan Dynasty, 2 small glaze vases from Yuan with an amber glaze. Nice looking, but I love this big dish. in this warm brown with this quilted on in the middle, or a mythical beast, and then flowers all around it. And it's a pretty good sized bowl. It's 17 inches in diameter, and the lot's estimated at 2,000 to 4,000. So the reserve is probably $1,200 or something on it. All right, so do check that out. And then going over to the Christie's sale, they have some Japanese stuff coming up. And if you're interested in Japanese work, stick around. There's some couple of really nice lots and some good Korean pieces in the sale. And it's going to be a test of the Korean market, because the Korean market's been very soft. And they've had a couple of sales, a couple of the auction houses have, where they've gotten some very good Korean collections. And I think part of the problem is that the owners bought them back in the 80s and the 90s when Korean stuff was very hot and the prices were extremely high, too high. And I think what's happening is some of these pieces, these collections are coming up for sale, and people are looking back at what they paid maybe in the 90s, and they're thinking, oh, well, I've got to at least get my money back, because I think some of the estimates are a little out over their skis. And even though some of them are very rare, and we'll talk about them, but one of them is this piece. This is a Namakawa Yatsuyuki cloisonne piece. And if those of you that know about Japanese cloisonne, he was the big dog. His workshop did the finest cloisonne work in Japan. And when you look at this up close, and you get a feeling for the elegance, the sensitivity of color, the execution, the refined work, and you look at these butterflies, absolutely stupendous. And then silver mounts and his signature on the bottom. There we go. It's a wonderful example. And a silver bottom. When they were done by him, they put a silver bottom on them typically. The estimate on it is significant, 35 to 50,000. Not out of this world. It's 7 5/8 inches tall. If you're a Namakawa Yatsuyuki fan, you might want to track that and see how it does. I'm hoping it does well, because he was an extraordinary artist. And then you have. Get the page load. There we go. Is this Japanese Amitabha Buddhist figure, and beautifully carved. It's not a big carving. It's visually it looks like it might be a couple of feet tall. It's only about 8 inches tall, but when you pull it in, this is a wonderful old carving with exceptional detail, great facial expression, and it looks to be in superb condition. The finish on it obviously is oxidized and weathered over the years, but overall it's in great condition. This is a great piece of carving, and it's estimated at $12,000 to $15,000. Kamakura period, 6 and 1/2 inches tall. It's fairly small, made in the 13th or 14th century though. It's a beautiful example to survive, because the wood they used was very, very brittle, very prone to breaking. And then there's this very nice Nigoro lacquer flask. I remembered this from a few years ago. This was sold at Christie's or Sotheby's, and it was a very nice Muromachi period example. And the lacquer work on it was very, very fine. I think we talked about it back when it sold last time. And there it is, gorgeous piece of Japanese lacquer. And these are decent size. They're not tiny. This one's 14 inches tall. It came from it came from the Irving collection, and it was previously sold in 2019, lot 1141 in their March 21st sale, and it's estimated at 7,000 to 9,000. Should get there, but it's a wonderful example. And then over to this, I'm pointing this out, the Nanban style lacquered box. You may remember a couple of weeks ago there was one of these, almost identical to this, that turned up with the William Smith auction in Vermont or New Hampshire. We talked about it, and that sale was yesterday. And that Nanban box brought around $6,500. So and this one is estimated at 4,000 to 6,000. So I'm just mentioning it to point out that the estimate is certainly reasonable for this. This was Momoyemo Edo period, awfully nice example, and it looks to be in superb condition, very nicely done, beautiful. And if you're a collector of these boxes, it's very unusual that two of these have turned up, in the same month of it. I think in the video I said, these don't turn up very often. And then when Smith's turned up, now this one turned up. So there you go. It is 5 by 7 inches. So it's smaller than the one that was up at Smith's. A little bit smaller, but nice example. And then over to this. The iron head. This is a Goryeo period Korean 10th century iron Buddha head. This is a great thing. This is a great thing, and it's ironwork. And you don't see a lot of ironwork in sculpture out of China or Korea. They had it, they just didn't do a lot with it. There's some very nice Sung iron heads that were done in the period, and they did some later. They did some in the Ming Dynasty, and this is a wonderful example, and it is pretty good size. It's 10 inches tall. It's estimated at 15 to 25,000. If you like old Buddha heads, that's a great example to try to go after. And then there's some nice Celadons, and these are the Goryeo period examples. There's also a lot of woodblock prints. There's a ton of woodblock prints on the market right now. But there's this, and this of course looks a lot like a Kangxi brush period, a Kangxi brush washer. And this was a stoneware bowl, they call it, Goryeo Celadon, and it's been set up with a lid like a Muzusashi. There it is. Very nice little example. The glaze looks excellent on it. You can see where it thickened over here. They provided a lot of images. You'll notice this one they've provided 8 images now, because I think they're really getting the message about showing pictures. They need to do that in different light. Very good example. Estimated at $30,000 to $40,000, and that's why I said they may have a test of the market for this, because I think the estimates to me seem a little aggressive. I may be wrong, but they seem a little aggressive. If I were looking at this auction today, I'd probably estimate this a little more modestly. But we'll see. The Christie's people may have some indicators that aren't available to everybody else, and they think it's going to do really well. And then there's this, the jar. Now, this is a very nice jar. Is there 2 jars coming up? There's this one, and no, there's another jar like this. There's 2 of this form in the sale. I just used one of them. Is this a very nice blue and white jar, Joseon period, 18th century, very lightly decorated with some underglazed blue branches underneath the Shao characters, and then these floating devices around it. Very nice pot, beautifully potted. The potting on these are great. These and moon jars, I've always loved the potting. The way they look, nice high shoulder and tapering in to a nicely proportioned foot. Slightly narrower than the mouth. And this is estimated, though, at $50,000 to $70,000. So we'll see how that does. And then the last piece is this. And this caught my eye because it had been authenticated. This is sort of amazing, by the Noritaka family. Asakawa Noritaka and his brother had a business, and they went and lived, and this is the beginning of the 20th century, and they went to Korea, and they lived there. And they became experts on Korean pottery. And they would authenticate pieces, and they dug out pieces, and they did a great deal through their work to build interest through the 1920s and so forth on Korean pottery, which in porcelain, which never got a lot of attention prior to that. And they became sort of scholars of it, and they identified pieces in major collections, and their name still, 120 years later, still pops up from time to time. I can't remember his brother's name. I just remember the name of the family. And there it is. This is a very funky, almost cartoonish looking tiger. And you know that in Korean art, we often see portraits of tigers coming down through the trees and so forth. It's a very popular motif, and they do those folk art paintings of tigers that are always so charming. I think they're great. And you have this. This is a very unusual vase. Very, very unusual with an animal on it. And then it's got a big estimate, $60,000 to $90,000. We'll see how it does. But overall, it's a good group of auctions. And there's more at Christie's, too. There's more in the Japanese sale. There's a bronze sale. Lots of interesting things. So do check it out. And there's a lot going on down in New York. And, you couple this with the Sotheby's sale, the bottom sale, and so on. And we're going to be talking about the Sotheby's sale in the next video, and do a couple more to sort of try to keep everybody filled in as much as we can. And thanks for watching. All right, and thank you for subscribing to us here on YouTube. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. Okay, I'll see you tomorrow with the weekly video, and we'll get the Sotheby's one out as quick as we can. All right, everybody. Bye-bye.